Tonight on Guitar Gear 1, we're going to be reviewing a 1/2 watted monster from Zvex. It's called the Nano Amp. That's 1/2 of 1 watt. That's all it is. And so let's take a look. Alright, so we're going to give you a look at the Nano here, and it is quite nano. It's very small. It doesn't have your usual control layout that you'd expect to find on an amp, which, you know, you'd usually find knobs that are labeled treble, bass, whatever. This is done with a series of switches. There is one knob in the center, and that's the volume knob, but it kind of acts more like a gain knob. Once you're up around 8 o'clock or something like that, it doesn't really get a whole lot louder. It's just driving the amp harder and harder. If we hop over to the left side over here, there's a fan that kicks on when you plug the amp in, and it serves to cool the innards of the amp so it doesn't crash on you. I'm assuming it gets very hot. There's a roll cage on it, so when you go off-roading, you're protected. And as far as the size of this thing goes, I immediately thought of like an MXR pedal. I think it's actually probably exactly about the size of an Electro Harmonix memory toy, if you can picture that. And if you can't, I got one right here. So it's about that exact footprint, if you can kind of picture what that would be like. Now, I wanted you to see this because I don't know if I'm going to do any more close-ups, but you can see the power amps, or excuse me, the power tubes here. There's two of them. You can see my finger here. It looks enormous now. But that's what's driving this thing. And as we start doing the review, I'm going to be talking about that. And yeah, let's just get into it. All right, so this is really happening. This little tiny guy is going to be driving my Engel 412 bottom with 4 vintage Celestion 30s in it. And it actually sounds pretty awesome. And what's going on here is you have these series of switches. And it's kind of like if you ever looked at a Mickey's cap. I don't know if you drink Mickey's beer ever, but it's like a puzzle. On the left side here you have a cloudy cloud. You have a sunshine, and then you have clear clouds. And then you have a kind of chubby guy, you got like sort of a skinny guy, and then you got a really fat guy on the right. And then over here you have a sunshine and then nothing. And so I figured out pretty quickly that the far right switch is your bright switch. This is fat, skinny, and kind of normal. And then you have, again, bright, really bright, and then really dark. And these switches are pretty functional. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to give you some sound samples, and you can start saying what you think. So, kind of no matter what you do with this thing, you have that sizzle. And you kind of have like that, I'm not calling it mid-rangey, but there's like a inherently fuzzy sound to it. I don't know if you ever messed around with a big muff or anything like that, but it's a fuzz sound, and it's almost impossible to dial out of this amp no matter what you do. So I wanted to just start there because it kind of nails that Santana thing. And I've been in a PRS mood if you haven't noticed, but so that was on the fattest setting with a pretty good amount of gain, and we're also bright, okay? And so as we start messing around with the different tones, you'll start hearing some differences. And by the way, we were on the treble pickup of the PRS. Real quickly, just here it is with everything else the same except on the neck pickup. So, yeah. I'm going to flip it from fat to thin while I'm holding on to notes so you can really hear the difference. huge drop off. Let's do the same thing with the medium guy. I mean, oosh, I mean, big decibel. I'm gonna start jumping around in some of the other settings. So we're on the bright sunny day setting right now, which is a very real and functional thing. Here it is on bright. This is 1/2 of 1 watt. 1/2 of 1 watt. That is 1/200th of the power of my Engel Powerball, for example. This is borderline loud enough to get the cops called already, and I'm not kidding. So that's for real. And here it is on a cloudy day, stormy day, whatever. So there's that. All of this has been with the bright switch engaged. So let's pop that guy off. The inherent sustain on this amp is awesome. It just wants to keep going. It just wants to keep going, which is a very nice quality. Minimal effort. I mean, just I'm moving my fingers and it's still going for me. I'm gonna try to clean it up. It doesn't really like to do that, especially with any kind of volume. But so we're gonna roll back the volume. I'm gonna go to the skinniest of the guys, and I'm gonna go bright across the board. We still got a lot of gain coming through. The volume back on the guitar a little bit. Okay, so that's going to be another factor. It cleans up a bit. It's still a little grizzly on the end, but that's not what this amp is about. This is what I wanted to get into pretty much right away. You can't cheat physics. We run into this all the time. You got these little teeny tiny power amp tubes, right? And so usually you're having talks about the difference between 6L6s, EL84s, EL34s if your amp is running in Class A, Class AB, like American amps. Typically American amps, if you don't know this, run with what are called 6L6 power tubes, and they're pretty fat. And then you have, usually it was more British-based amps like the Vox AC30 is a great example that ran in Class A. They had smaller tubes, and they didn't have as much low end as their American counterparts. And again, this is like a typical thing. It's not across the board, but typically 6L6s are a little, well, significantly bassier, but it takes a lot more power to saturate them and to get a big overdriven tone. The smaller a tube is, the easier it is to overdrive it and to get a big singing sound out of it. But you're losing low end. You're losing low end, and those are the smallest tubes I've ever seen in my life. And so you can't get that low end back in there. You're never going to get that headroom back in there. And again, we've talked in other videos about headroom, which is the ability to crank up an amp without distorting it if that's what you want to do. So this thing is made for really low volume, singing sustain, and a lot of gain. But it's not a modern gain. It's not, you're not going to be playing metal with this thing. So if you're looking to play a blues gig, you want something that can really sing out. And that's kind of the worst thing for me personally. If I'm playing a gig and I can't turn up my amp and I'm playing a guitar with single coils in it and I really want some singing sustain, it's just nearly impossible to get that. This would really help get you there very, very quickly. I think it's loud enough to play a decent sized room with. But the last thing I'm going to tell you is it's expensive. It is expensive for what it is, in my opinion. I think these things are weighing in at about $500 right now, and that puts you into the category of a lot of amps that are lower output, lower powered, that maybe have some more features. But if money isn't a thing, if you run into a deal on this, holy crap! I mean, as far as like space goes, things like that. I mean, this isn't a rig. I mean, this is like your cell phone. I mean, this is incredible. And if this is where things are going, some really neat stuff might be happening. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is, in addition to being cooled with a fan, there's a little speaker built into the bottom. Now that might sound totally useless, and basically as a speaker it is. But what's interesting is there is no on-off switch. Okay, so there's no power switch on this amp. You plug it in to turn it on. Now before I set up this video, I didn't have the speaker cable running to the cabinet plugged into the amp. If that load wasn't put onto this little speaker in the bottom, this amp might have just exploded in my face. Not the best day of my life at that point, probably. I don't know. But so, pretty well thought out amp. It's got some pretty cool features, definitely worth messing around with. Might be a little pricey for what it is, but if you want to have one, I would never talk you out of it. Anyway, thanks for watching Guitar Gear 1. Subscribe if you want to. Come back if you want to. And again, if you got a cool band with a cool band t-shirt, I want it. Send it to me. I'll wear it. You might see me at NAMM with it someday. So, thanks for watching. Come back.